This is a map of Western Europe. 12 of these countries are monarchies. Today, we are looking at some of these republics to see how happy and satisfied are citizens with the current republican system, and to give some insight. This discussion promises not just an overview, but an insight into the pulse of the nations and why, despite evident dissatisfaction, a return to monarchy isn't gaining momentum. So let's start. Every political journey starts with understanding the key terminologies. Our exploration today is about the Republic. Originating from the Latin phrase res publica, it loosely translates to public affair. This term evolved over time, becoming synonymous with Commonwealth. The nuances of republic can vary greatly, contingent on the context of usage. Initially, a state, whether monarchy or otherwise, could have been termed a republic if it concerned public affairs. However, in our contemporary political climate, republics and monarchies often stand as opposites. Each represents a unique framework of governance, distinctive in structure and principles, but with some shared elements of public involvement and representation. Political systems are products of history. They evolve through events, taking shapes molded by socio-political impacts. In Europe, World War I acted as one such critical event, causing the fall of German, Austro-Hungarian, and Ottoman empires. Post-World War II, communism's rise in East Europe further reshaped the landscape. Currently, Europe leans predominantly towards republicanism, with a majority of its countries adopting this form of governance. This transformation marked a significant shift in governance style and policies across Europe. From monarchies that once ruled vast territories, new republics emerged, adopting principles of citizen representation and theoretically equitable power distribution. But how successful has this transformation actually been? And more importantly, how do citizens evaluate their current political systems? In broad terms, most governments can be classified into one of the three categories: democracies, aristocracies, and monarchies. These aren't strict compartments, though rather may exist on a spectrum, with many countries incorporating aspects from different categories. So let's start from the top. A democracy, in its purest form, involves all citizens in the process of decision-making and law implementation. This principle embodies the vision of a government for the people and by the people. In its purest form, this is often referred to as direct democracy, where every citizen has an equal say in the direction and decisions of their government. Such system was famously practiced in ancient Athens. However, it's important to note that such model of pure direct democracy is extremely rare in the modern world. The practical challenges of involving every single citizen in every decision are enormous, especially in large and more populous countries. Nevertheless, some modern countries do incorporate elements of direct democracy into their governmental systems. Switzerland and Liechtenstein, for instance, regularly allow citizens to directly influence legislation and policy through referendums and initiatives. But even those are not pure direct democracies. They blend elements of direct citizen decision-making with representative democracy. Rousseau, a notable philosopher, recognized the value of direct democracy, but also expressed his reservations. He suggested that such a system might only be effective in smaller states, where consensus can be more readily achieved. As a contrast, a monarchy centralizes executive power in the hands of a single entity, the monarch. While this can result in a highly efficient system of governance, Rousseau warned that it carries significant risks. If the monarch is corrupt, cruel, or simply incompetent, the entire system suffers. Expanding on the discussion of modern aristocracies, it is essential to understand that today's aristocrats are the parliamentary elites. Much like the nobility of the past, these individuals hold significant sway over the policies and directions of their respective nations. However, unlike the hereditary nature of traditional nobility, these modern nobles are chosen based on merit and are elected to their positions. Just like the nobility of old was layered, the dukes and counts holding sway over different regions, today's parliamentary elites also exist at different levels. There are city parliamentaries, often handling local ordinances and policies, much akin to local nobles of the past. Then we have regional parliamentaries that manage larger geographical areas, and finally, national parliaments responsible for entire countries. In the context of the European Union, we also have the European Parliament. Here, representatives from each member nation come together to discuss and decide on matters affecting the entire Union. Now, looking at the parliaments of EU member nations, the total count of national parliament members across all these countries is approximately 7,829. This figure includes both lower and upper houses where applicable. Moreover, the European Parliament itself has 705 members. So if we add all of these figures together, we end up at 8,534 parliamentaries. Given that the population of EU is about 447 million, this means that there is roughly one parliamentary representative for every 52,340 EU citizens. This ratio may not be exact, as the number of parliamentaries can change with elections and the population figure is also continually evolving. Nevertheless, it gives a good estimate and illustrates the vast number of elected representatives in the European Union. These parliamentarians, in essence, form the modern-day aristocracy. And just like the aristocracy of old, they are entrusted with a significant share of governance and bear the responsibility of representing the interests and welfare of the citizens who elected them. A particularly interesting model of governance takes the line between monarchy and republic, the so-called crowned republics. This term refers to a monarchy where the role of the monarch is largely ceremonial and royal prerogatives provide limited power over executive or constitutional matters. Most European monarchies fall into this category, and they coexist with parliamentary systems, thus earning them the title of crowned republics. In Western Europe, there are 12 monarchies, 11 of which can be classified as crowned republics, with the Vatican City being the exception, since it is an elective theocracy led by the Pope. When it comes to parliamentary representation, numbers sum up to approximately 3,605 parliamentarians across these 11 monarchies. Given the combined population of these countries, each parliamentary representative caters to a considerable number of citizens. However, the distinguishing factor between these monarchies and republics is the role of the monarch as a non-partisan controller of the parliamentary work and laws proposed. While presidents often arise from the same political parties and may be influenced by the party politics, especially if they harbor ambitions to be re-elected or if parliament is controlling their budget. Monarchs are typically above the political fray. They embody a continuity and neutrality that some argue add added layer of stability to the political system, as their role is not subject to political winds or the pressure of re-election. Maybe having a non-partisan controller is what is making European monarchies rank traditionally at the top of democratically developed countries. To go deeper into the matter, the Monarchies channel carried out a series of surveys. We sought the opinion of citizens across several republics to measure their satisfaction with the existing political systems. This feedback we collected unveiled the vivid and enlightening portrait. We checked Greece, Bavaria, a major region in Germany, Italy, France, and Austria. Satisfaction rates go between 26% in Austria to 50% in Greece. Taking into account the satisfaction rates in these countries, the average satisfaction level calculates to approximately 37.8%, leaving 62.2% either dissatisfied or neutral. Reflecting on these statistics, a heartbreaking narrative emerges. It is not just that discontent is bubbling under the surface among the citizens of these republics, it's a cycle of optimism and disappointment that's being repeated over numerous election cycles. Election after election, citizens' hopes are raised by promises of change and betterment. They put their faith in their elected representatives, hoping that these officials will rise to the occasion and address their nation's challenges. Yet, all too often, these hopes are dashed. As the dust from the election campaign settles, citizens witness politicians engaged in power games and self-serving negotiations, losing sight of the people's needs. The situation is made worse by the presidents in these republics. Supposed to serve as independent checks on parliamentarians, presidents, often linked to the same political parties or alliances that put them in power in the first place, frequently just rubber stamp whatever is placed on their desk. This pattern raises serious questions about the effectiveness of these republics and whether an alternate system, perhaps a form of constitutional monarchy, might provide a more viable solution. To solve this interesting puzzle, we need to look closer at how people see and understand the idea of monarchy. We need to think about a few important questions. First, we should look at how well people have argued for monarchies. Have they made strong, clear arguments that make monarchy seem like a good choice instead of a republic? Are people hearing and understanding these arguments? Next, it's important to see how open people are to what might seem like an old system. Some might see the idea of monarchy with its kings and queens as too old-fashioned for today's world. But is this really true, or just an outdated idea? Finally, we need to check if people know about the good things a modern constitutional monarchy could bring. This type of system offers a mix of democracy and stable leadership with good fix to the problems we see in many republics. Do people know about these benefits? If not, how can we help them understand? To find the answers to these questions, we need to have an open discussions and teach people about what a modern monarchy really looks like. And what is the better way to learn more about monarchy but looking at other TMC videos. Thanks for watching, see you in the next video.